It's time to get you caught up with all things sports.
Yes! 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 Yes!
On the throw-in.
One thing is certain. None of this is possible without you, the listeners.
From baseball, football, wrestling, and more, covering local Cincinnati sports, stories, news, and highlights.
Why is he always calling me meat?
With your host, Justin Trento.
When it's all said and done, we're going to look back and remember this is what started it all.
Available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Good play the ball! Good play the ball!
Alrighty, well, a very happy Tuesday, and welcome to the throw-in here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. My name is Justin, and we're back at it again. We got a couple of different ways we're going about it for the next 2 weeks as we get ready for the NFL that begins next Thursday. Against between the Detroit Lions and the Super Bowl defending champions, Kansas City Chiefs. And I can already tell you that today's program is going to be much better than yesterday's program, just for the simple fact that this is the second consecutive day of doing a program each and every day for you guys. And it's important, right? It's, one thing that I've learned with podcasting and doing this show is that it takes several weeks to get on a cycle. It takes several weeks to get on a routine, and it takes several months, if not a year or two at least, to start establishing and building a consistent listener fan base. Okay, I've had this conversation before with other colleagues of mine, people like, especially, for example, Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, Steve, a good pal of mine over there. We've had this conversation before, and one of the things that I think we can agree on is that, if you do a show, whether it's a weekly basis, a bi-weekly basis, a daily basis, that it takes a long time for people to start gravitating to your program. It takes a lot of time. Okay, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of effort that you put into this. And it takes months, if not, years and whatnot, to build the fan base. Well, I can tell you right now, through experience, you go miss 1 week or miss one episode, it's like, oh no, what's going on in this, what's going to happen? You lose everyone, especially in this podcasting world. And obviously, I know, listen, I'm not perfect. I've had hiatuses left and right. But, it's important that we're here every day. So that's what I'm thriving to be. That's what we're looking forward to having on an everyday basis. So we got a lot to take care of. So we talked about, hey, NFL is just a little less than 2 weeks away. And I think the countdown for me is 10 days away, right? Because today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday again. So 10 days. I got 10 days before NFL starts. And I know at the beginning of this month, when preseason started, we were talking about each division. I didn't really quite get far, you guys. So we're going to rewrap that back into a circle, and we're going to talk about the NFC East. I know we've talked a lot about that, but I want to continue the conversations today about the NFC East. And then tomorrow we'll go ahead and talk about another division in the NFC and so forth throughout the remainder of the week. And then next week, to kick things off, we'll get conversations going about the AFC. The question that I have for you is, what division do you like to see, or which division or conference, in that matter, it stands out to you the most? It's everyone pushes, excluding myself. We push to having the AFC being the number one conference over these two NFL conferences. I mean, how can you not enjoy watching the AFC? They have all the great quarterbacks right now. Okay, you got Patrick Mahomes, who is defending Super Bowl champions. You got Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, which are just seems to get better and better as the years go on. And oh, by the way, we picked up, AFC picked up Aaron Rodgers, who is now playing for the Jets. And so it's packed. That's just at the quarterback surface. AFC is known for running, okay, and eating a lot of clock, more strategic style of gaming. But it just seems like when you look at the AFC and you look at the divisions in the AFC, there's just a lot of more compelling, interesting stories and factors and games to be promoted. I take a look at the NFC and I almost scratch my head. Now, we'll talk about this in the program, but the conversation of having, the NFC East, which I personally believe is the number one division in the conference. And, as we go through it today and throughout the rest of the week, I hope you guys can see it as well. I mean, you got Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones, who's had success year after year. You got Jalen Hurts, and the Eagles, who made it to the Super Bowl. Now, yeah, given that they did lose, but they also had, they're looking to repeat themselves. Okay, and if they can repeat themselves, all right, now this is a serious team. This is a serious quarterback in my eyes. And then we look at Daniel Jones, who is growing in the division with the Giants and Washington Commanders, which I still don't feel like Washington is anywhere close to being postseason ready. I feel like they just established their name. They just established their, they haven't even established what their team is about, in all honesty. So there is an argument to say here, a week before preseason or a week before the season starts, that the NFC, the East, is the team to look out for. Now that doesn't warrant the notion of Jordan Love taking over Green Bay, and he looks pretty good so far, and there's expectations riding on that. The South is expected to step it up. Okay, it's a whole new image. You got Derek Carr, you got Bryce Young. Okay, you got, you just got you got new team. You not got new quarterbacks. You got Baker Mayfield. And then you take a look at the AFC West, who I think, San Francisco is locked in, set on Brock Purdy, which is great. And then you have, Geno Smith, who impressed a lot of people, including myself this past year. So I think there is an expectation for Brock to maintain the same, stature, or for Geno Smith to remain the same stature. And a lot of people are out there saying that, hey, Matthew Stafford, the Rams, they had a fluke, year last year, off year. Everyone was injured, and we really don't know what we're going to see out of the Los Angeles Rams coming into 2023. But I truly believe that the NFC East is the best division in the conference. And I don't know. Maybe if you had a particular team in the NFC alone, then you'd argue to say that NFC is a better conference than the AFC. So we're going to begin those conversations today, and we got a couple other categories we're going to touch base with. But let's get down to the business at hand, and that's this Major League Baseball playoff race here as we sit on August 29th. It's a Tuesday. It's the afternoon. The Reds dropped the first game to the San Francisco Giants. They lose 4-1. And this is where I find the Reds to start just falling apart. Andrew Abbott gets the nod for the Reds last night. And we understand that Andrew Abbott, along with Brandon Williamson, who will get the nod tonight in game 2, they're younger guys. We knew that they were going to eventually make it to the big leagues and major league roster at some point this year. But, hey, both of them had been called up a bit early throughout the course of the year. Now, we thought, with the Reds being in contingency at the trade deadline that, Nick Krall could sit there and say, all right, what can we do? Who can we add to help better our team? And, we're sitting at the trade deadline and we're kind of, rambling off. We got to get something for pitching, whether it's in the bullpen or whether it's in the rotation. And I think one of the, agree to disagree on this one or agree and let me know your own thoughts. But one of the downfalls right now that the Reds are struggling tremendously is to get their starting pitching, okay, their rotation to give us consistent, solid outings each and every day. Andrew Abbott pitched 3 1/3 of an inning last night, giving up 5 hits, 3 runs, walked 3 batters, striking out 6. Now you go put up against Kyle Harrison, who was the Giants pitcher last night. And oh, by the way, this is his second major league start. Okay, so in front of his home crowd where he grew up. There's 30 minutes east of San Francisco. Okay, over there, in Oakland, what would I say? Anyways, okay, in front of 24,581 fans. Well, last night, Harrison went 6 1/3 of an inning. So you're telling me that this young pitcher, same resemblance comparison to Andrew Abbott, although Andrew's had a little bit more major league experience. Okay. Harrison, in front of his home crowd, went 6 1/3 of an inning, only allowing 3 hits. He walked 2 batters, striking out 11 batters in a 4-1 win last night. According to the San Francisco statistics, Harrison's the second pitcher since 2000 to throw a double-digit strikeout in his second career start, dating back to 2018 on April 8th, where Shohei Ohtani did it with the Los Angeles Angels facing the Oakland Athletics. The only other Giants player that did that was Jeff Tesorero back in 1912. I apologize if I can't pronounce his name. So, I mean, it's the domino effect. Great. Hey, great moment for Kyle Harrison. These are the moments for that you live as a fan of baseball, as a fan of the sport. You live for these moments where those young guys get called up and they get the spotlight like Harrison did last night. Congratulations to Kyle Harrison. And I hope wherever the future leads for him in his career path at the major league levels, I hope that he could carry it on. But and when you go circle back around to the Reds, we are now down 1 game, which means we are now playing 500 baseball on this road series. I started off a week ago in Los Angeles. We didn't play Monday. We played Tuesday. We had a doubleheader Wednesday. We swept the Angels. okay, in Anaheim. We went down south to Arizona and we took one of 4, which isn't good. And we got off to a low start here already at Oracle Park up in San Francisco. We already also learned that Matt McClain, who is right now a contender runner-up for NL Rookie of the Year, is out with a oblique strain for at least 10 days. So what does that mean? Is that I think ultimately it means that that our players are gassed. We have a young group of guys that would typically in the minor leagues in their season around this time in the next week or two. Okay? They're getting gassed. We're talking about Ellie De La Cruz. We're talking about Christian Encarnacion Strand, Matt McClain, Noel V. Marte. These are all players that we were expected to be called up throughout the course of the year. Andrew Abbott, for example, Brandon Williamson, for an example. They're all expected to be called up at some point of the year. A lot of them got called up early. So I'm trying to just put the pieces together. Where are the Reds going wrong now? And what is the overall outcome? This just didn't happen this month. So, right now, at this point, I believe that the Reds are getting winded. They're gassed. They're done. Okay, I don't know if they have much more in the throttle to hold themselves afloat for a postseason. I want Cincinnati to come back in tonight and come back in for the month of September and be like, listen, you're wrong about us. And I would eat that cake as it comes. But I'm calling it right now. I think the Reds are gassed. I think that the players are ready, are already checked out of the season. They're not used to playing 162 days of the year. And this is that learning curve that happens with young guys. And you don't have enough established between young rookies to veterans on the ball club that could help lift your team in the month of September. Right now, a crucial month because we're still only a game and a half out of the wild card race. Milwaukee beats Chicago 6-2, so that doesn't quite help us. And I'm not really, at this point of time, I would say I'm not looking at a Milwaukee divisional, chance. We're done playing Milwaukee. I just think that they're too good. I mentioned this yesterday. Players there are teams out there that know what it takes in September and August to get to October baseball. Milwaukee is one of those teams. Chicago has the talent, has the coaching staff that knows what it takes to get to October. Right? They're not all rookies. Right? They're not all young, guys who are fresh meat into this league. So we have ourselves our handful. And I'm not saying that Cincinnati can't make it October baseball. I'm just saying that it's going to be pretty difficult, and they're going to have to find something to change here very shortly. Because right now, when you're looking at playing, right now you didn't do well against Arizona, who currently holds that third spot in the wild card. You have San Francisco on the outside looking in, a half a game back. And then you have Chicago in a 4-game series this weekend. And they're also in the wild card. So the teams that you're going to probably be facing, if you could get to October baseball, you have to go through them right now. And right now, the Reds ain't holding their end. So we'll talk a little bit more about Reds baseball coming up next. We got a lot of baseball and football to get to you on this Tuesday afternoon program of The Throw-In. If you guys are watching us on our YouTube page, Facebook page, or Twitter page, thank you. Hit that like button. Share with a friend. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Okay? Want to hear what you guys have to say. Comment down below. Get in part of these conversations. Also, if you platform, thank you guys as well. Just downloaded yesterday's episode a few minutes ago, so be sure to check that out. And be sure to like us. If you miss anything related to TNC Sports Talk, check out our website at www.tncsportstalkshow.com, where you can check out all the latest episodes, all the latest news, blogs, all that fun stuff. You can comment, you can leave a review, you could also sign up and be a future guest on our program. So visit www.tncsportstalkshow.com. All right, going to take a first timeout of this afternoon. Coming on back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Reds and the Giants, Game 2. You guys are listening to The Throw-In here on the TNC Sports Talk Show YouTube channel. .225 here on the Throw-In, taking you guys for the next 2 hours. I welcome you guys back inside the studios, given to you thanks to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk Show, Sports Talk YouTube channel, where you can create podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out their free version today at StreamYard.com. We'll be taking a look at the AP College Rankings Top 25. Let you guys know how college football stands among Week 1. Handful of games played this past weekend, and more come starting up this Thursday. I consider NCAA college football beginning this coming up Thursday. So we also have Labor Day weekend coming up a week from yesterday. So wherever you guys are at, hopefully you guys are making good plans. If you guys are enjoying lunch, enjoy your lunch here. But all right, well, you know what? The Cincinnati Reds have another chance. I mean, I know yesterday didn't go quite as planned, but they'll have another chance tonight, 9:45 Eastern Standard Time. The 68-65 Reds, currently in third place of the NL Central, and I got 2.5 games back, or a game and a half back, because Arizona lost yesterday, of a wild card position. And they'll go up against the San Francisco Giants, currently sitting at a 68-63 record. They are in third place of the NL Central, and they are only a half a game back of the Diamondbacks for the third spot of the wild card. As far as any changes went, Philadelphia is 4.5 games up in the wild card position. Chicago is a half a game above Arizona, who holds the third wild card spot. Over there on the American side, Tampa Bay has a steady 5.5 game lead, ranked position number 4th in the wild card, followed by Texas and Houston that are tied. Toronto has 2.5 games back. Boston has 5.5 games back. You look at beyond Cincinnati being a game and a back behind of the wild card. Miami's 2.5 games back, and San Diego, who beat St. Louis 4-1 last night, is now 7 games back. And we've seen miracles happen before. And this is why I'm saying, this is why I'm so questioning. A few years back, St. Louis came in, had a 17-game stretch in September, and found their way into the playoffs. As a matter of fact, I think they found their way. They replaced Cincinnati in the playoffs. But, so San Diego beat St. Louis last night. 4-1. Milwaukee beat Chicago 6-2. Pirates shut out the Royals 5-0. Christian Yelich hits a leadoff home run as Milwaukee beats Chicago for their 9th straight victory. And this is why it's so important to get on. I know everyone goes through their ups and their downs in the league. It happens. We've seen it happen. But this is not the time to be doing so. And you hope that, right now, I guess you do it now compared to the end of September, but when you're out of race, there's no room, there's no margin for error. And that's where I guess I'm getting at it, because I don't have, and I guess, you can get upset with me for me saying this, but I don't have the confidence in this Reds team with how inconsistent they are right now. I don't have the confidence in the Reds going in September, being 3-4 games out of the wild card, behind teams like San Francisco and Arizona and Chicago, and say, all right, we can play above 500 baseball and go on and win and make an entry into the postseason, which then, as a Reds fan, makes you wrap your head back around. Great. We won the fans back, which I think was crucial. If anything was to be accomplished this year, it was crucial that the Reds went ahead and won the fans back. But I'm also believing that Cincinnati needs a little bit more hype, because this hype was through the roof, and I don't want to be another Pittsburgh Pirate tale on their success that they had at the beginning of the season, and then look where they're at now. So, I don't know. I got the mixed emotions, because if the season ends today and the Reds don't make it, I'm still satisfied with how the progress that they made throughout this year. San Diego, St. Louis, game 2 tonight. First pitch, 7:45. Milwaukee, Chicago, 8:05. You'll have right-hander Corbin Burns on the mound for the Brewers. He's 9-6 with a 3.65 ERA. Chicago will have left-handed pitcher Justin Steele, 14-3 with a 2.80 ERA coming into tonight's ball game. Pittsburgh and Kansas City at 8:10. And then we got the 9:45 Reds Giants game 2. The Reds will have left-handed pitcher Brandon Williamson, who is 4-3, 4.18 ERA. Williamson, he's kind of been in that slump lately. I tell you, he's only won one of his last 5 starts. So for in the last 5 consecutive starts, which isn't good. So hopefully Brandon Williamson can find a way to get back on some winning track. But hey, they're going up against a right-handed pitcher in Alex Cobb. He is 6-5 with a 3.74 ERA. And he's coming into tonight's game, right? He has now recorded a win on his record since July. Okay, matter of fact, he's actually allowed 10 runs in the last 8 starts to the game. So for me, if I'm trying to analyze this game, the first thing that comes to my mind saying, all right, how are the Reds going to win this game? They got to get to Alex Cobb. They got to get to the starting pitcher, put some runs up early on in Oracle Park, and then be able to bank off of that. We also need Brandon Williamson to give us a solid 5-6 innings. I'm okay if you give up 1-2 runs here and there, but that's also given that the Reds can score in 4 or 5 runs throughout the game. So we're looking at that heading into tonight's game. And hopefully when we talk about the Reds tomorrow, they split the series. We'll get the rubber game, 3:45 tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to that game. And hopefully what I'm expecting, okay, like I said, the worst case scenario, you don't win the series, which means you don't win today and you don't win tomorrow. But what you have to do is that you can't afford to get swept, which means that if you want to walk away with at least a 500 record on this last road trip out on the West Coast, this last big travel, right, coming back, then you have to at least find a way to walk away with 500 baseball. That's all I got to say about that. All right, some other news coming out your hand. Baltimore, on this other hand, right? Baltimore is the first team in the American League to secure a 500 record season, which I'm flabbergasted to, and I'm probably just as shocked as anyone else who's hearing Baltimore at the top of the American League. They currently have the best record in the American League. If the playoffs would begin today, they would have the first round bye with Seattle Mariners. Two teams that I thought I would never maybe be talking about leading the division and leading the American League in general, compared to teams that, like Houston or like Tampa Bay. Now, I could have sat here and had that nonchalant conversation saying, all right, they're contending for a wild card spot, but nothing came to my imagination to ever say, hey, Baltimore, Seattle, top of the divisions of the American League. They're top of their divisions, and they probably have the best records in baseball. Surprising. Which gets me down. We talk about Seattle, talk about the ends, the cracks of baseball, and how just baseball works in so mysterious ways. And you got to talk about Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, who's been dealing with a lot of injuries. It seems like a year in, year out. I mean, Shohei Ohtani, a big one that came off of the news this past weekend, how he tore his UCL. He's still able to produce offensively, but he's going to be shut down throughout the rest of the season. He may, on the pitching side, and he may have to consider surgery at some point during the off season. Now, this is not new story. This is not a new story developing, but Shohei Ohtani did not come from Japan to be on a team that is settled playing 500 baseball. Shohei Ohtani is too good of a player to be playing for a team that is not in playoff atmosphere, not playing October baseball each and every year. They're not at the run of a World Series each and every year. And this year, this offseason may finally be the year. Okay, we thought there could have been a trade with Shohei at the trade deadline. I think the Angels were still in contingency, although we saw it kind of slipping away. But the Angels are, but Shohei Ohtani is in a position where he has to make a decision what to do. He can either stick with Mike Trout and be an Angel for life and go on your way, your happy, merry way, just being an average baseball player, which, by the way, we know I'm considering him the best baseball player of all time. Okay, I am surpassing Shohei Ohtani past all the elites, including Babe Ruth. You can't compare him to Babe Ruth. Because guess what? Babe Ruth did not, he was a two-way player. But by the time that he was 24, he was mainly playing offense. He wasn't a pitcher. He gave that up. So when you talk about Shohei Ohtani, who's capable of playing as a two-way player for consecutive years, okay, he looks to be playing that way for the remainder, at least for the another several more years. There's nobody on this, in history that you could compare Shohei Ohtani to. He's creating his own history. And I'll tell you what about that. Shohei Ohtani is one of those guys. All right. This is what Japan has to offer. Well, trust me. Okay. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is where we begin to open those doors, where you could be like, all right, well, players are going to expect to play both ways. I will take a lower batting average. I will take a lower ERA or a higher ERA if you're playing both ways of the ball. This is how the game is developing. I trust me when I say this. In the next 10 years, I can see many more two-way players being implemented into the game of baseball today. That's just how it's going to happen. I personally believe when it comes down to Mike Trout, when it comes down to Shohei Ohtani right now, and where the Angels are at, that it's time to maybe shut them down for the season. I'm sorry, but I feel like the Angels are just too far out, being 10 games back. That means you have to beat the Houston Texans, the Texas Rangers, the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Boston Red Sox. And I just think that's too good of a list to sit here and say that the Angels do have a chance. I mean, anyone behind the Angels, maybe the Yankees, the Guardians, I just don't think that they could catch up to what is set for September. I say for now, just shut these two guys down, which it sucks because these are great athletes, but I really think it's time for, I know it sucks because I love the Angels, but I want to see two of the greats playing with, in a Reds, Halo uniform. But realistically, we have to consider that there is probably time to go trading for. And this is going to be the off-season question of the year, is that if Trout and if Ohtani does agree to go to another team, where will they land on? Will they remain on the West Coast? I know Dodgers are having eyes out on them. Or could they end up on the East Coast? I know Trout and Philadelphia maybe. Those are off-season questions that need to be answered. All right, coming up next, bottom half of hour number 1, we will talk about the AP Top 25. College football rankings are in. Let's give you that information when we come on back. You guys are listening to a throw-in here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I just can't wait until Thursday to come. I mean, like I mentioned yesterday, I just feel more and more excited about college football year in and year out as they come to surface. I mean, yeah, I will love to see college football change, and I would love to see college football kind of grow and change their format to the to the playoffs and all that fun stuff. But overall, I mean, when you think of college football, what's so great about college football is that it's everywhere. Okay, and so not all 50 states have a NFL team. But there's a lot of teams that there's a lot of states that if you're born and raised, you've had to resort to a team somewhere else, and it allows you to be on the market of saying, all right, hey, I'm gonna go be a Dallas Cowboy fan, and I live in Idaho. I live in Wyoming, but I can be a Buccaneer fan. But when you come down to college, college is local. There's several around here. I mean, growing up in San Diego, that's all we talked about, college football. If it wasn't the Chargers. And regardless if you have a bad program, if you have a crappy team, or if you live in Georgia and you root for the Bulldogs, it's football. is college football, right? I mean, these are young guys. These are young men, okay, that used to play for your local hometown. You think of high school football, maybe 2% of these guys go off to play college football. But you can sit back and you follow somebody, maybe you have an alma mater, let's say you went to San Diego State. And now you have a reason to follow anyone who is playing football at any level, or baseball or basketball, saying that, hey, they went to San Diego State. College football is such a great thing. I grew up playing high school football. Had a person I know, guy I know that played that was running back. He broke all sorts of records for Mira Mesa High. Went on to play with I believe it was the Kansas City Chiefs. Won the Super Bowl a couple years back. Back it was in 2020 when they beat the 49ers. And it's just like, great, get a chance to know. So that's how connected football can be, especially at the lower levels, whether it's high school, college. But it's always interesting to see how they rank things. And I'm going to be honest with you. This is the AP rankings. Top 25 came out, and we're going to finally take a look at this. And I feel like this is more of a preseason ranking, and a lot of people are going to be judging, and a lot of people have their own thoughts and own opinions. I don't want to hear your opinion. But the first thing that gets to me on this AP Top 25 is your top 5. Okay, let me start off by saying, and you know what? There's no surprise. Let's start off by number 1. Obviously, Georgia belongs number 1. No questions about it. And I believe they're going to be number 1 this year as well. But I feel that the number 2 and number 3 ranked right now in Michigan and Ohio State, I think the AP poll is being very generous. Maybe a little bit of sympathetic is being taken into place by ranking Michigan and Ohio State at 2 and 3 and putting Alabama down at number 4. Okay, I don't care how you guys want to write it out. I'm throwing Alabama at number 2. If it was me putting my rankings out there, I'd throw Alabama at number 2. There's just no way, at least at the start of this season. Michigan is that good, and they're going to be in a tough division. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, all going to be deserve to be in the top 10. As a matter of fact, I think Penn State should be number 5, if not number 6. They should be ranked higher because the Big Ten is going to be very big this year. Michigan's going to lead the Big Ten once again, and it's going to be Ohio State and Penn State as teams that are going to have to find a way to beat Michigan in order to keep up with them. But, listen, at the end of the day, Alabama, in my books, I feel like they're sugarcoating this list. I mean, I know that deep down in my gut, I'm telling you, Michigan this year, excuse me, not Chicago. I don't know where I came up with that. Michigan this year is going to be better, in my opinion, through and through against Alabama. Okay, I know that's a pretty bold statement, but I truly believe that Michigan will be better than Alabama this year. And hell, I could even see Ohio State being better than Alabama this year. But to begin the season, I think it's a tad ridiculous to sit here and watch and observe that Alabama is ranked so far down as to number 4. And like I said, let's go to number 5 and LSU. Where in the world does LSU come into play at number 5, nonetheless the top 10? And I can't wait until week 1, week 2, week 3 is over with, And we finally seeing these teams change. And guess what? We're going to see, teams that we don't typically see there be added on. You got USCIC, Penn State, Florida State, okay, Clemson, Washington. And then the first thing I noticed is Texas. And what a great way to roll it over into the next hour here, because we're going to be looking at the Bearcats' schedule as they enter in a new conference in the Big 12. And boy, I tell you, they got the work out for them. Texas is ranked number 11th. Now, hey, thank goodness the Bearcats don't have to face the Longhorns this year. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a tough conference for the Bearcats to adjust to. And I don't know how well we think they're going to handle themselves heading into this new season. You got Notre Dame, Utah, okay, Kansas State, TCU's another one to mention, Oklahoma as well, all in the Big 12. I'm actually interested to see, and if Cincinnati can have themselves a decent year this year, can we potentially see Cincinnati break the top 25? I know we've seen it in the past, but they were in the AAC when they were in the top 25. I want to see how, is it going to be easier for Cincinnati if they have success to be recognized and noticed from NCAA more being in the Big 12 than it was compared to the AAC? That's where I'm kind of looking at, because that's the whole reason why, right? That's the whole reason why you jumped conferences. Okay, there's television deals, there's financial income that plays a role into it, but it's time. Listen, I expect Cincinnati within the next 3 years to be in the top 25 come beginning of the season. They're growing, they're getting better year in and year out. Make an argument for why Cincinnati, who takes a long shot to go into this other conference and get better matchups, in the next 3 to 5 years, they can't be in the top 25 just as TCU is, just as Oklahoma is. Because I see teams right now, Tulane, Iowa, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, I feel like they're getting sugar-coated to be in the top 25, because you got to throw names in there and you got to have to give everybody a little bit of love. So we'll see how NCAA turns out. This is the AP top 25 as of this morning for you guys. And just soak it in for a minute. Let's see how much it changes. I want to compare each week and see where teams change as we get ready for NCAA college football coming up here in less than 72 hours. First games are going to be held on. Man, don't you gotta love football? All right. So we got college football out of the way. Like I said, hour number 2. This is what I have stored for you guys in hour number 2. When we come back from break, we will look at, I want to talk a little bit more about the Aspire and Glow website that I talked to yesterday about. If you guys haven't gotten a chance to go visit Aspire and Glow, it's a local business in the Crescent Springs community area, right next to La Rosa's in Crescent Springs, off of Buttermilk Pike, if you guys are in the area. Good friend of mine has his own business that he sells, gemstones, jewels, antiques, collectibles, apparel, clothing, all at prices that you just can't beat anywhere else. Trust me, I've looked. I've compared a lot of his prices. He gets them directly from the source, and he marks them down to help consumers and customers be able to afford these things, we've been creating a website for him. So we'll talk all about that in hour number 2. Okay. We're also talking and break down the Bearcats schedule here to kick off hour number 2 also, because it is important that we understand exactly what we're getting ourselves into ahead of the college football season. And like I said, we could sit here and talk about Kentucky. We could sit here and talk about Eastern Kentucky, Northern Kentucky. We could talk about Louisville. We could talk about Cincinnati Bearcats. We could talk about, we can talk about Ohio State if we want. But Cincinnati, we're jumping full sail into the Bearcats this year. And they're about to kick off their first game against Eastern Kentucky this Saturday at home at Nipper Stadium at 3:30, I believe. We'll have 3 games before we face the Big 12 conference for the remainder of the season. And one of those games is Pittsburgh. It's going to be an interesting matchup. So where do I believe that the Bearcats are going to finish off this year in the Big 12? We'll talk about that. And then the NFC coming up here. Can't forget about the NFC, where we have arguably one of the best division in the NFC conference. They're just stacked. They're just ready to go. So we'll talk all about that coming up in hour number 2. Thank you guys. Without you guys, this show is impossible. Hit that like, share, subscribe button. Get comfortable because hour number 2 is coming up next. Thank you guys for tuning into the Throw-In here on the TNC Sports Talk Show YouTube channel. Alrighty. Hour number 2 here on the Throw-In. Welcome back. Hour number 2 on our program is given to you thanks to Spreaker from iHeartRadio, where you could upload your podcast and distribute your audio podcast among all major platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, all that fun stuff. And you guys could also view your analytics, see your viewership and how all that goes, and be able to monetize your podcast. Check out their free version today at Spreaker.com. Yesterday's episode was uploaded to Spreaker. You guys can check that out right now. Gosh, these allergies, man. I don't know what it was, and I don't know if it's something that I'm doing, but I'm telling you that I'm not really. I got like a little frog in my throat, and it's kind of like I feel like it's allergies. That's what I feel. It's kind of giving me like a scratchy throat, and I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I don't like it. Especially around this time of the season where we got a lot of things to talk about, right? We can't miss these episodes. I know I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and I'll be doing some other things throughout the day. So I'm going to try to squeeze in a show at some point tomorrow, but we will see here. Look at myself in the camera. Gosh, is this what you guys see? All right, I talked to you guys before the break, but let's talk about it again. Like I said, I got a good friend down the street here. His name is Tony. He runs and operates Aspire and Glow, and man, I got to give him a lot of credit. He's an entrepreneur himself. He does so much. He tries to do so much, but we just created a website here a couple months ago that I want to just talk a little bit, get you guys out here to visit yourself. You could head on over to www.aspire-glow.com. It is www.aspire, ASPIRE-glow, GLO.com. And this is where you're going to find his store online. Okay. He's really known for those tie-dye items, like those cross-shoulder bags. He got those tie-dye t-shirts, all sizes, even youth. He has youth sizes too, and we're working on getting them up. We have a lot of products available. He's known for come up here for product items here. He has backpacks, hoodies, jackets. I mean, one of a kind. Can't get these. These are all handmade, hand stitched, hand designed. Can't get a duplicate of them, even if you try. All right, they're Himalayan, 100% THC free backpacks. Several pocket cases for maximum storages. You got hoodies. He loves those rock and roll hoodies like the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd. It's going to start getting chilly enough to wear hoodies again. I walked outside today to take my girls to school, and man, I enjoyed the mid-60s, especially when it's nice and breezy. So I'm enjoying that from all the heat that's coming through. So you pick up your hoodies from here. These shirts you could order online and, be able to, get them shipped to you. Got some nice Guardian Stone bracelets that represent your symbols. Other bracelets that have meaningful power. I was looking at the which one was I was looking at? I was looking at the Mother of Peace, and this one is specifically designed to help the inner peace and calm of pregnant people while they're pregnant, for mothers and children. I was like, I'm gonna perfectly get this one for the wife, because it will help her calm and just nurture her throughout the rest of the course of her pregnancy. So, as we're expecting. But right now, throughout the end of August, if you use promo code TIEDYE, that's TIEDYE, you can save $5 and get yourself a cross-shoulder Himalayan tie-dye bag. Not one's alike. So get yours today while the offer is still available. If you guys could stop by the store, tell him that I sent you there. He'll hook you up tremendously there by visiting the website at www.aspire-glow.com. The link for the website will be in the descriptions down below. I'll have to put it on afterwards for everyone there. All right. So that's enough there. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bearcats, because they jump into a new conference, I'm telling you. All right. They're jumping into a new conference. They're treading water that I don't know if they're ready to be, that they can handle the new water that's being tread. But guess what? They're going to try to do it. And they got a nice, interesting schedule coming up here. And I kind of want to talk to you guys about it and kind of give you my predictions for this schedule that is coming up here. So, all right. So they kick things off this Saturday at 3:30 at Nipper Stadium at home against Eastern Carolina. Okay. And like I said, the first 3 weeks of the season, the Bearcats are going to go on, and they're kind of warm-up games, right? You kind of get your feet wet. You get, you get your, through and through. You look at what you have available. Okay. Now, yes, I will like Cincinnati to win all 3 games. And I think the first 3 games of the season are going to be up and down, but we'll get to that in a moment. When you look at the remainder of the season, Oklahoma and foremost, okay, and how this is displayed on the screen is from left to right, right to left, left to right. So September 2nd, they're facing Eastern Kentucky, at which I believe they're going to go on and have a nice win. Then they head the following week to Pittsburgh, where this is where I feel like a win will be very impressive, but I'm not counting on a win. And I'm actually going to give them their first loss on the year at Pittsburgh. So they'll begin the season off 1-1 before heading back home to take on Miami, Ohio. Which then I do truly believe they'll at least start the season off 2-1. Okay? And I'm actually marking it as I go. And I want to follow to see exactly where everyone, where I stand throughout the course of this year. So I am going to predict that Eastern Kentucky is a win. Pittsburgh is a loss. Miami is a win. 2-1. Now, if they could go on and beat Pittsburgh and they could be 3-0, hey, they're going to need it. Because then they will be home September 23rd. I think this is going to be a really huge game for them when they go on and they face Oklahoma. And that's when I believe that the struggles will start prevailing a little bit more. I'm actually predicting that on September 23rd, they'll be handed their second loss on the season. They'll be 2-2 heading into their little bye week at the beginning of October before they head to BYU. And I also believe that they'll lose at BYU. They'll head back home and face Baylor on October 21st. And I think that they'll pick up the victory against Baylor. And, I already made a mistake myself. September 29th, they're at BYU. Okay, so I already got this screen mixed up. All right, so let me follow this through. So they beat Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky. They drop Pittsburgh. Miami, Ohio, they pick up the victory. They'll lose to Oklahoma. September 29th, they'll lose at BYU before coming back home and facing Iowa State, which I think they'll go ahead and pick up a victory against. Then they'll pick up a victory against Baylor before dropping a loss at Oklahoma State October 28th. They got a UCF matchup there for November 4th. November 11th, they'll be in Houston, and I think they'll beat UCF on November 4th. They'll also go on and beat Houston as well. They'll pick up the victory on the road against West Virginia, but then they'll drop Kansas. So what I have here on my charts, 1, 2, 7. So I believe that Cincinnati Bearcats, at best, will have a 7-5 record. Now, the problem with the schedule that I see here, okay, that's giving leniency that they will take care of business against Iowa. We went through the Big 12 yesterday, and we looked at the teams that were in. We had Baylor, BYU, Houston, Kansas State, Iowa, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, West Virginia. Okay? And we look at, first of all, the Big 12 is not a division conference. The Big 12 is just one big conference. And what I would have liked to see and I counted, I think it was like 14, 15 teams in the Big 12 this season. I would like to see this divided up so that you could take the top of each division and have them face each other for a championship match. And I think if you did it that way, and if the Big 12 does that eventually, what you do is provide more opportunities and more confidence in these teams saying, hey, we still have a chance. But let's remember that we're not facing Kansas State. We're not facing TCU, Texas, or Texas State throughout the course of this season. And which I think it's a big break because TCU and Texas are two of the three teams in the Big 12 that are ranked. So you go back through this schedule and you say, all right, let's look at the big one. You have a ranked Oklahoma, which I still believe they'll be ranked in the top 25 by week 4. And then you got to take on BYU, which I know it's going to be a challenging game. And you know, I could see them go either way, but this is more of a West Coast late night game, which then I just feel, I got that feeling that they're just not going to do well. And if they can do well, then they may come home to take on Iowa and have the opposite turnabout. Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you guys have a different opinion, but I feel I'm predicting that Cincinnati is going to be a 5-7 team this year. And it's not a bad thing. But when you look at the new division, new conference that you're joining, like I said, we're treading water, taking on a team like Oklahoma, taking on someone like Iowa State, West Virginia, Kansas. They're going to provide you little room to effort. And especially now, you're in the category of TCU expect to be lights out perfect this year. Texas is always a good team. Oklahoma's a decent team. Now, I don't see, they're bowl quality teams. They're not going to be in the top 5 where they're going to be facing, challenging the college football playoffs this year. But this is a huge adjustment for the Bearcats that can either work extremely well or could be very devastating to watch. And I hope that it's not as devastating to watch. But we're in territory that we have not explored. See, the AAC, we could be comfortable in. We're at the top of the division. We had one, maybe 2 teams along with us at the top of the division that we had to look out for every year. Now, I'm sorry, we're at the bottom of this division. We're at the bottom. We're at the bottom of the food bowl, the food chain here when it comes down to the Big 12. And we're not going to be perfect right away. I don't think anyone's expecting us to be perfect, but I don't know. What do you guys think of Cincinnati being 7-5? Is that being too harsh on them, or is that being too lenient on them? Let me know down in the comments. All right, when we come back from our break, let's get down into the NFC East. I know we visited a few times this month already. I never really got on the roll of things. So we have to get back on the roll of things. We'll do that here. We come back. We'll talk about all 4 teams in the NFC East, and we'll explain to you why the NFC East is probably the best division in the NFC conference this year of the NFL football season. That's still to come. You guys are listening to a Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, 322. Want to give a big shout out to Epidemic Sound. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound, a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. All right, we got a lot of fun here coming up here in this second hour because we're talking about the NFC East and their authentic predictions. I'm going to scratch all the other episodes that I attempted to predict the schedule and the standings and the assumptions for the NFC East. And we're going to actually repay a visit right here, right now, for the remainder of this hour with the 4 teams that consist of the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Washington Commanders. Arguably the best division of the NFC in general. I mean, we could look just alone at the quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones. When you think of those 3 names, you just can't help but get excited because, for one, Daniel Jones and the Giants are working their way up. Right? They have stepping stones that they're accomplishing week by week. They just signed Jones to the new contract, so lock and secure your quarterback. And I don't know if the Giants are going to be good enough to win a division or even make it to a Super Bowl, but when you have 3 of the 4 teams, as we see in the NFC, make it to the playoffs last season, you got to be feeling pretty good about yourself, no? You know, Sam Howell last year with, Ron Rivera and Washington Commanders. I think that's a bunch of baloney. I laugh at the concept that Washington just did not pay attention to the standings and didn't think of losing a game could have cost them. Well, you know what? You know as well as anyone knows in the NFL or in any sport that matters, especially with football, that when you get halfway through the season, every game is crucial, regardless or if you're in a security blanket or not. The only time you could sit here and take the gas off the pedal at the end of the season is if you know, either one, you're so shitty terrible that you're not going to make the postseason, and so you're rebuilding for the next year, or you've secured and locked in a first-round bye. Either way, you shouldn't be sitting here at week 15, week 16, week 17 saying, oh, well, if we win, we win. We don't. I mean, I don't pay attention. I know you pay attention. The NFC is arguably one of the better divisions NFC East is arguably one of the better divisions in the NFC alone, flat out. They are going to be the most exciting to watch this year among the NFC. I think they create better primetime games this season. And so, when you look at the other divisions in comparisons that we will get to this week, I say San Francisco in the West could be there. I believe that's the only other division that can stand the chance against the East. But we have to see a repeat from Geno Smith. Last year, this time, we were talking about Trey Lance being the future of the 49ers. He gets traded to the Cowboys, and now we're all invested into Brock Purdy. And the injuries ate up the Rams. The last year, that was their excuse. What's their excuse this year if they don't have a successful season? There's too much new things going on in the South. No more Tom Brady. You got Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield. The only thing positive right now is Bryce Young with the Panthers. So, in my opinion, in the South, you expect Derek Carr to rise to the occasion. Wouldn't be surprised if Bryce Young can handle his own this season. And then Baker Mayfield, you have a lot of work to do. And I'm not touching you with a 10-foot pole because I stuck my neck out last year and I got hung to dry. And that North with Jordan Love, great. Is Green Bay good enough to be a postseason team? So all of those questions, I think, warrant the NFC East to be just the better team. But let's get down into the actual conversation of each team. Let's begin with the Dallas Cowboys. Are the Dallas Cowboys good enough to win the division? I've been saying this from time and time again, and I hope that people can understand where I'm coming from when I say this. But how many playoff runs do you need to have before you consider yourself a dynasty? Compared to a remembrance, and I will repeat this once again for those who have not heard of this yet. You could have 100 consecutive postseason appearances, but neither one of them are going to be remembered, except for the one that you go on to win the Super Bowl. I can tell you who won the Super Bowl a decade ago, but I can't tell you every team that's been in the postseason a decade ago. And for me, the time is running out with Trey Lance. Now, listen, people are having mixed feelings, mixed emotions about what Jerry Jones did this past weekend, how he decided to pick up in a trade with the 49ers. He picked up Trey Lance in exchange for a couple of draft picks and did not consult Dak Prescott or Mike McCarthy. Now, you may go out on the limb and sit here and say, oh, well, this is a bogus move. Jerry Jones is, he's old. He needs to, he doesn't know what he's doing. Well, you say whatever you want to say. But I think this is a very smart move. How long and how much longer, if you've seen Daniel Jones getting better year in and year out, and you're seeing Jalen Hurts, who within a year, because I don't think anyone quite frankly expected him to be or even better yet, the Eagles to be as good as they were last year. When you get Dak Prescott, when you see everything else that's evolving around you, how can you not say, oh, crap, I got to get my head out of my ass and perform better? You can make it to the promised land. You can't get over to the hump. And that's where I think bringing in a guy like Trey Lance, now he's a guy who has not been judged. I mean, people like to judge him, but he has not had enough NFL time to really hold on to him. I mean, this is a blue bargain chip. You could either trade him in the first month and a half for someone that can show interest of, catapulting your team to the next level, or you can say, all right, I'm going to maybe trade him out if Prescott gets hurt. Maybe he'll be the backup quarterback. Well, let's get down to the season that the Cowboys have this year. And the first and foremost, I see the week 1 in New York. And this is where I say that they pick up their first loss of the season, hands down. Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, they're at MetLife Stadium. Oh, by the way, let's get excited because New York is going to have their logo. The Giants are going to have a logo now in the 50-yard line. I got the Giants picking up the victory on the road. Dallas comes back home to face the Jets against Aaron Rodgers. Looking so far so good. Cowboys, I'm sorry, I'm giving you an 0-2 start of the season. I know you don't like that. But, hey, you know what? You're going to come back in week 3 and pick up a victory against the Arizona Cardinals on the road. And that's what kicks off your season. Week 4, coming back home to face the Patriots and Bill Belichick. I think at home you pick up a victory. And so just like that, Dallas Cowboy fans, you begin the season off 2-2. You head over to San Francisco, and you know what? I think the Cowboys can beat the 49ers. It's a Sunday night game. You're on the road. The Cowboys seem to have their hands pretty full. Like they can handle their own during the course of the regular season. Comes down to playoffs is a whole other story. But I think Cowboys will go on and win this one on the road. And plus, since San Francisco's all in on Brock Purdy, they got, who they got? What, Sam Donald in the back? I question a little bit how well their season is going to be. Then they head down south to face the Chargers. I believe that they could pick up a victory before the bye week. The Cowboys have had success against the Chargers in recent times. So before the bye week at week 7, they go on and they go on and kick off the season 4-2, which in my books isn't bad. You come home for the Rams, and I feel like you pick up that victory against the Rams. And then this is where it starts struggling at, because you go to Philadelphia and you ain't beating the Eagles on the road. You come back home to face the Giants, and this is where I can see you picking up evening the score. They split the series 1-1. You go to Carolina and beat Bryce Young. They come back home to Washington, face the Commanders, and they're picking up a victory here. Seattle at home as well. And I will give it to the Cowboys. Okay. Week 14, they're home against the Eagles. It's going to be a tough one. I don't think Dallas is walking away out of this one. Then they're facing Buffalo Bills on the road in Buffalo. This is almost around Christmas time. Buffalo ends up winning. They head down to Miami, and they pick up a victory against the Dolphins. They beat the Lions. And let me see where they're at right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think to get themselves into a playoff spot, they'll beat the Commanders. And they'll finish off the season 12-5, in my opinion. So 12-5 is not bad enough. I don't believe that it's good enough for them to make it to the postseason. Or they'll make it to the postseason. It's not good enough to win the division. Rephrase it. Now let's move over to the New York Giants, who seem to be moving in the right direction. The problem that I run into when it comes down to the Giants is that they have, you hope Saquon Barkley has a better year this year than how he finished off last year. And you also hope, I just feel like maybe the Giants are in a too tough of a division with the talent they have. They have good talent. It's just not the best talent. So I got them beating the Cowboys in game 1. I have them going over to Arizona and winning game 2. And then they're heading down up to San Francisco, at which I think they'll actually lose their first game to the 49ers. They'll come back home and actually lose to the Seahawks. When they head out to Miami, they could beat the Dolphins down in Florida, because, to be honest, I'm not thinking highly of Miami. They head up to north to Buffalo, where I think they'll also pick up a loss, heading back home to face the Commanders, where they pick up a victory, followed by facing the Jets on week 8. And this is actually a very, very tough one, in my opinion. Everyone has hype that the Jets are a threat to the AFC and the AFC East and to the NFL. And I actually think the Jets will pick up the victory. You go to Las Vegas and face the Raiders, as which they will lose to the Raiders, coming back, losing to the Cowboys on the road, and then picking up a win against Washington. And then they'll also come back home and pick up a win against the Patriots before their bye, which means they'll begin the first part of their season 6-6, playing 500 football. They'll come back and they'll play the Green Bay Packers, which I think Jordan Love fits perfectly in that division, in that team, and he's going to, I think, hold himself pretty nicely. Green Bay will pick up the victory. They'll head over to New Orleans, where Daniel Jones will beat Derek Carr. They'll be on the road to Philadelphia in Week 16, at which they'll lose, but they'll come back home to pick up the victory against the Rams. And then the final week, they'll pick up the victory against the Eagles, because the Eagles will lock in, set their division. Which means they will be 9-8 on the season. And I'm believing that could be good enough for a wild card spot. But one thing before I cut the break here that I find struggles for when it comes down to the New York Giants in this circumstance is that this is I feel like there are a lot of egos being fed for the Giants in a way. They're a good team, and I think they could even be a 10-7 team or even 11-6, but they need a lot of things working their way that I don't expect to have. All right, first half of the NFC conversation is done with. When we come on back and on the bottom half of our program, we'll wrap up with the Eagles and the Commanders. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, well, I think tomorrow we will talk a little bit about, we'll actually talk about the NFC North. That consists of the Bears, the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings, oh my. Tomorrow's on The Throw-In, we'll talk about the NFC North, covering our prediction on where I think each team will stand in that division. All right, but we are talking about the NFC East here, and we're actually jumping right back into the sales of talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, the NFC champions defending their territory. And, you know, I don't want to jump too much. I had to hold the brakes a little bit on the Bengals when they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago and they lost against the Rams. Everybody in the town are jumping on Joe Burrow's the best quarterback. The Bengals are the best team in the NFL. But you know what? At the end of the day, and I'm sorry to say this to the Bengals, but until you actually win the Super Bowl, you can't be the best team. You know, they have come close, but yet they still have yet to get the job done. And I truly believe that the Bengals are a good team, but it also took a couple of years of success. I refused to believe last year that Joe Burrow was as good as a quarterback as people said he was until they proved me wrong. And you know what? I will wear that hat that Joe Burrow proved me wrong. He had multiple years of success. The same energy and the same understanding goes for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. You can have all the success in the world. We talk about this with the Cowboys. But it comes down to actually putting a ring on the finger. And you know what? Unfortunately, they did not get the job done last year. And I'm not saying that they're not a legit team. But a legit team is not consisted off of a progress that was made for one season only. We have to see numerous and consecutive years of success and talent. And then you get into can players and coaches adjust to accomplish what the mistakes that they've had. I do strongly believe that the Philadelphia Eagles is probably one of the fierce teams in the NFC East, or in the NFC alone. And I don't think a lot of teams will compare when you compare them to the Eagles. Yeah, maybe the 49ers. Maybe if Brock Purdy, because this will be the first time we will see Brock at full capacity in this year. By the way, he had an injury last year that ended his season. And hopefully that doesn't carry over at all into this year. But only time will tell. Right now, Philadelphia seems that they will have a lot going their way this year. They'll have a few threats, but I don't think nothing too serious about these threats. So we get into their schedule, and they begin their first game of the season in New England against the Patriots. And you know what? I think they're going to win with a statement. And I see Philadelphia going 1-0. They'll come home to face the Vikings, as which they will go 2-0. And no, I don't believe the Eagles will go undefeated. The Eagles will then head to Tampa Bay and beat Baker Mayfield to be 3-0. They'll beat the Commanders. They'll go to Los Angeles and beat Matthew Stafford and the Rams. They'll head to New York and beat the Jets in week 6. They can beat the Miami Dolphins. They will be on the road, and their first game I believe they will lose is against the Washington Commanders. I believe they make that up in week 9, beating the Dallas Cowboys before they head to the bye week on week 10. But that means they will begin the season 8-1. They will have a Super Bowl rematch on Monday Night Football in Kansas City, at which they will lose to the Chiefs. They will come home and lose to the Bills before beating the 49ers in week 13. They go to Dallas to face the Cowboys the second time around, at which they will take a clean sweep over the Cowboys. They will beat the Seahawks on the road in Seattle. And then they will beat the Giants in week 16, beating the Cardinals in week 17, losing to the Giants in week 18 because they have secured another NFC East divisional championship, which makes them 13-4 on the season. Not too shabby, isn't it? Not too shabby. I think that they will also have the first round bye in the NFC. All right, let's get to the Washington Commanders right after this quick promotion. You know, two longtime friends from high school are back with each other. They don't live near each other, so they can't record live in the same house, in the same studios. But Steve Barber, Dwaylen Davis, with the Armchair Booking Wrestling podcast. I love these are two gentlemen who have authentic, knowledge. Gosh, Dwaylen's an encyclopedia to professional wrestling. They talk a lot of all professional wrestling news, stories, updates, highlights, and all that fun stuff at Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. You can download them. You can actually go to subscribe to them on their YouTube page. Be sure to download them on all audio platforms and be sure to follow them on their social media pages as well. All right, the Washington Commanders, a team where I kind of feel like they get lost in the shuffle in this sense. They kick things off in week 1 against Arizona, which I think they'll actually pick up a victory in week 1, followed by heading down to down to Denver in the Mile High Stadium, where they will actually pick up the victory against the Broncos. They'll begin the season off 2-0, and I think a lot of people will kind of, are they actually good? But you know what? No, they'll lose to Buffalo Bills in week 3, followed by a Eagles loss in week 4, followed by a Bears loss in week 5. They will pick up a victory against the Atlanta Falcons in week 6, and then they will fall short to the Giants in week 7. They'll win week 8 against the Eagles, cutting their winning streak before losing to the Patriots in week 9. They'll also lose to Seattle in week 10, and then back again against the Giants. They will lose against the Giants, and then they face Dallas on Thanksgiving weekend, at which they will lose. Miami, I think they could pick up a win against Miami before their bye week, which means out of the 13 weeks, they only have 5 wins on their repertoire. Week 15, they'll be in Los Angeles, where they'll lose against the Rams, followed by a loss against the Jets, a loss against the 49ers, and a Cowboys loss in week number 18. So they'll finish off 5-12 on the season. Nothing so well. I don't know where Ron Rivera will head after this, but I do believe that they may part ways after the season. I just think that this division is too good in all other categories and all other teams to have Washington be a threat at all when it comes down to this NFC East. Okay, that is the Eagles winning the division at 13-4, followed by the Cowboys 12-5 record, a Giants 9-8, and the Commanders 5-12. And I do believe that the Cowboys will make it back to the postseason. And I even believe a little bit, but that the Giants can make it back to the postseason as well. That's not all out of stretch. But there's a lot of things, as we mentioned here, will have to go right for some of these teams. Dallas Cowboys, you're going to have to figure out, or maybe hopefully picking up, Trey Lance, and who knows how he's going to react or how he's going to be, and maybe what is the initial thought process of the Cowboys using Trey Lance. Picking up Trey Lance hopefully could light a fire under Dak Prescott's, ASS. Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. All right, contracts aside, it's time to play football. It's time to win a division. Ultimately, you have the Eagles trying to get back to the Super Bowl. They believe that they're the hot shots, that they're the team to beat in the NFC. So Dallas, New York, among the other competitive teams like the 49ers and maybe the Packers, they're looking to put the Eagles to rest. And by doing that is by beating them. But this is going, because although I have the records so far apart, 13, 12, 9 wins, 5 wins, this is anybody's ball game here in the East. And that's only NFC. That's why they are going to be, and it's not going to be a one-sided division. All right, Eagles are not going to go out there and win the division after 8 weeks and say, all right, we could lollygag for the next 2.5 months and walk our way to the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen that way. But they are a competitive division. They are going to be probably one of the best divisions in the conference, probably in the NFL. All right, that wraps up our program for this afternoon. Be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. We will be back tomorrow to cover the NFC North and hopefully to cover a Cincinnati Reds victory. Talk a little bit more about college football, and we'll probably throw in some wrestling somewhere along the lines. But that's all the time we have. Until tomorrow, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you guys for tuning in to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.